When my boss stopped under the mistletoe and said, "You know the rules," the entire accounting department went silent. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silent where even the ice in people's plastic cups seemed embarrassed to move. I was standing 2 feet away from Mara Whitfield, holding a paper plate with one sad bacon-wrapped date on it, wearing a sweater my sister had called festive but emotionally unavailable. Mara had one hand wrapped around a glass of champagne she hadn't touched, her dark hair pinned up in a way that made her look elegant and dangerous, and her eyes were fixed on me like she had just made a decision she could not unmake. Above us, tied to the brass archway between the conference room and the lobby, hung the mistletoe. Behind us, someone whispered, "Oh my God." And Mara smiled. Not her boardroom smile. Not the one she used when a client tried to mansplain market research to her. This one was smaller, warmer, worse. Because I had seen that smile only once before, 3 weeks earlier at 11:48 p.m., when we were the last two people in the office and she had laughed at something I said so hard she had to look away. My name is Ethan Cole. I was 26 years old, a senior graphic designer at Haven and Lowe, a mid-sized branding agency in Chicago, and until that Christmas party, I had managed to keep one rule very clear in my head. Do not fall for your boss. Simple rule. Clean rule. The kind of rule a man makes right before life puts a woman like Mara Whitfield in charge of him. Mara was 31, our creative director, and the first person I'd ever met who could make a room full of executives feel underdressed using only a raised eyebrow. She was sharp, controlled, terrifyingly competent, and she never wasted words. If Mara said, "Interesting," it meant your idea had one foot in the grave. If she said, "Walk me through that," it meant your idea was about to be buried with witnesses. But she was also the person who remembered that our receptionist, Grace, liked peppermint tea. She was the person who stayed late to help interns fix portfolios without making them feel stupid. She was the person who once slid a protein bar across my desk at 9 p.m. and said, "You design like a genius when you're fed, like a raccoon with software access when you're not." That was the problem. I could handle beautiful. Beautiful was manageable. I could handle intimidating. Intimidating had structure. What I could not handle was beautiful, intimidating, and secretly kind. The party had started at 6 in the office event space, which was really just our largest conference room stripped of chairs and filled with garland, string lights, rented cocktail tables, and a jazz trio that looked like they had been assembled by an algorithm called Inoffensive Holiday Mood. I arrived late because I had been downstairs fixing a presentation file for a client who believed final was a philosophical concept, not a deadline. When I walked in, Mara was near the windows in a burgundy satin blouse and black trousers, talking to our CEO, Peter Voss. She looked composed as always, but there was a tightness around her mouth I recognized. Mara only looked that still when someone was asking too much of her. I grabbed a drink I didn't want and tried not to stare. I failed within 8 seconds. "You know," said a voice beside me, "if longing burned calories, you'd be medically concerning." I turned and found Denise from Strategy grinning at me over a mini quiche. "I'm not longing," I said. "You just looked at Mara like she invented oxygen." I was looking at the windows. Sure, the windows with cheekbones. I took a sip of cider to avoid answering. Denise had been at Haven and Lowe for 11 years, which meant she had survived 4 office renovations, 3 CEOs, and 1 disastrous open floor plan experiment. She knew everything, including things no one had told her. "She's in a mood," Denise said, softer now. "Mara?" "No, Santa. Yes, Mara." I looked back. Peter was laughing too loudly. Mara wasn't laughing at all. "What happened?" I asked. Denise shrugged. "Board wants her to take the New York role." Something moved in my chest. I had heard rumors about an expansion office, bigger clients, bigger title, the kind of opportunity Mara deserved, the kind that would put 800 miles between her desk and mine. "She didn't tell the team," I said. "Maybe she hasn't decided." Mara glanced over then, like she could feel my attention land on her. Our eyes met across the room. It lasted maybe 2 seconds. Long enough for her expression to shift. Long enough for my pulse to become unprofessional. Then Peter touched her elbow, guiding her toward another cluster of people, and she looked away. I spent the next half hour pretending to mingle. I congratulated a copywriter on an award I didn't understand. I let the finance team convince me to try eggnog with too much nutmeg. I accepted a candy cane from Grace, who told me I looked handsome but stressed, which felt both generous and legally accurate. Then Mara appeared beside me at the dessert table. No announcement, no warning. Just the soft scent of vanilla and winter air, and suddenly my whole body knew where she was. "You're hiding by the cookies," she said. "I'm networking with carbohydrates." Her mouth twitched. "Productive?" The gingerbread men are very receptive to feedback. She picked up a shortbread star, turned it between her fingers, then put it back without eating it. That was Mara, too. Always touching the edge of indulgence, rarely letting herself have any. "You fixed the Keller file," she said. "I did. You didn't have to stay late. You asked if anyone could look at it. I asked the room. I was in the room. Ethan." There it was, my name in her voice. I hated how much I liked it. She looked at me then, not like my boss checking a task, but like a woman trying to read something she wasn't sure she had permission to read. "You've been carrying too much this month," she said. I laughed once. That's rich coming from the woman who answers emails at 2 in the morning. Insomnia is not a management style. You sure? Because leadership seems to love it. She looked down, smiling despite herself. That smile did things to me no holiday bonus could legally compensate for. For a moment, the party blurred around us. The jazz trio slipped into "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas." Someone near the bar cheered too loudly. A string of lights reflected in the window behind Mara, outlining her like a secret I wasn't supposed to want. Then she said, "Denise told you about New York." I didn't pretend. "She mentioned it." Mara exhaled. "Of course she did. That woman could hear a whispered merger through concrete." "Are you going?" "I don't know." It was the first uncertain sentence I had ever heard from her. Not polished, not strategic, human. And because I was an idiot, or maybe because Christmas lights make fools of people, I said, "If you go, they'll be lucky to have you." Her eyes softened. Then I added, "We'll be miserable, obviously. The clients will revolt. The interns will start designing in Canva. I may become feral." "That would be a shame," she said. "You're one of the few people here who argues with me properly." I argue respectfully. "You once told me my headline concept had the emotional depth of a napkin." "It was a strong napkin." She laughed under her breath, and something between us warmed so quickly I had to look away. That was when Peter's voice cut through the room. "Everyone, before dessert disappears, we have one final tradition." A groan rolled through the staff. Mara's face changed instantly. "Oh no," she murmured. I looked at her. "What tradition?" She gave me a look. "You're new enough not to know." That sounds ominous. It's stupid. Most traditions are. Peter lifted a small velvet bag like he was announcing an engagement and not an HR complication. "The mistletoe draw," he said. "Two names, one festive moment. A holiday kiss or a dramatic refusal for the amusement of your coworkers." People laughed. Some clapped. Someone yelled, "Consent forms!" Mara's jaw tightened. I leaned toward her. "This can't be real." "It started before my time," she said. "I've tried to kill it 3 years in a row." "Why didn't you?" "Peter thinks it's charming." "Peter thinks font choice is decoration." That got another almost smile, but her eyes stayed on the bag. The first name Peter pulled was Mara Whitfield. The room erupted. Mara closed her eyes for half a second. I felt something ugly and hot twist in my stomach. Not jealousy exactly. Worse. The thought of her being pushed into some joke for everyone's entertainment made my hands curl around my cup. Peter reached into the bag again. He looked at the paper. Then he grinned like a man who had just discovered live ammunition in a toy store. "And Ethan Cole." The room turned toward me, every face, every smile, every raised eyebrow. Mara opened her eyes. For one breath, neither of us moved. Then she walked toward the archway. Not embarrassed, not flustered. Mara never gave a room the satisfaction of seeing her cornered. I followed because refusing would have made her stand there alone, and because some selfish, honest part of me wanted to know what she would do when the joke became us. We stopped beneath the mistletoe, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes, close enough that her sleeve brushed my wrist. The room held its breath. I leaned down slightly and said, low enough for only her, "We don't have to play along." Her gaze flicked to my mouth, then back to my eyes. It was fast, not fast enough. "No," she said softly. "We don't." Then she lifted her chin, just enough to make my heart forget every workplace policy ever written. And in front of the entire company, Mara Whitfield said, "You know the rules." But before I could answer, she slipped something into my palm, a folded note. And when my fingers closed around it, she whispered, "Read it before you decide." For a second, the entire party narrowed to the paper in my hand. The laughter around us faded into a bright, distant hum. Mara stood inches away, face tilted up, eyes steady on mine, as if she hadn't just handed me a secret under mistletoe in front of 40 coworkers and one CEO with the emotional instincts of a game show host. "Come on," Peter called. "Don't leave us in suspense." That snapped me back. I was holding a note from my boss. My very beautiful, very complicated boss, and the room expected me to kiss her. Mara's expression didn't change, but her fingers brushed mine once. Barely there, a hidden touch under the noise. Permission? Warning? Plea? I didn't know. But I knew this. I would not make her into office entertainment. So I smiled at the crowd like a man who had not just felt his future tilt. Then I bent and kissed Mara on the cheek. Not a stage kiss. Not a joke. A slow, careful press of my mouth just beside the corner of her lips, where her skin was warm and soft and she inhaled so quietly I might have imagined it. Might have. The room exploded anyway. Cheers, whistles, applause. Someone from production shouted, "Weak!" Mara turned her face just enough that her breath touched my ear. "Coward," she whispered. My blood went hot. I pulled back and met her eyes. There was amusement there. And something else. Something that had no business being in a conference room decorated with discount garland. "Careful," I murmured. "I'm trying to be noble." "Nobility doesn't suit your jawline." Before I could recover from that, she stepped away, leaving me under the mistletoe with a folded note burning in my palm. Peter clapped me on the shoulder. "Good man, Ethan. Tasteful. HR approved." "Always my dream," I said faintly. Mara disappeared toward the hallway. I lasted 12 seconds. Then I turned my back on Denise's delighted expression, slipped behind the tall fake Christmas tree, and unfolded the note. Her handwriting was elegant and severe. "If I kiss you in front of them, it becomes their story. I don't want that. Meet me on the roof in 5 minutes if you want it to be ours." I read it 3 times. My heart did something embarrassing, then something practical, terrified. An adult tried to interrupt. She was my boss. I worked for her. There were policies, consequences, power dynamics that mattered. Reasons this was dangerous beyond the usual risks of wanting someone too much. But the note did not say, "Come upstairs so I can ruin your life." It said, "If you want." And God help me, I wanted. I wanted so badly I had to stand still for a moment, breathing through it like weather. Denise appeared beside the tree with 2 cups of punch. "I'm not asking what that note says," she announced. "Great. But if you go wherever it tells you to go, fix your hair first." "My hair? You look like a man who just learned feelings have teeth." I took the cup from her and drank half of it without tasting anything. "Is this a terrible idea?" I asked. Denise looked toward the hallway Mara had taken, then back at me. "Probably," she said. "But not because she's Mara." That was not the reassurance I expected. "What does that mean?" "It means she doesn't play with people. If she handed you a note, she's already thought through 17 reasons not to." "And the 18th? Denise smiled. "Maybe that's you." I hated how much that landed. I set down the cup and walked out. The hallway beyond the conference room was dimmer, quieter, lined with framed campaigns and old industry awards. The party noise softened behind me. My reflection followed in the glass walls as I made my way to the stairwell at the end. On the roof, the December air hit me first. Sharp, clean, necessary. Haven and Low occupied the top 2 floors of a converted brick building near the river. And the roof garden was one of those agency perks used mostly for recruitment photos and summer lunches. In winter, the planters were bare, the metal chairs stacked, the city glittering around the edges like spilled jewelry. Mara stood near the low wall in her burgundy blouse, coat open despite the cold. "You'll freeze," I said, because apparently my first instinct in a romantic crisis was weather commentary. She turned. "I wondered if you'd come. I wondered if this was a test." "It isn't." "No trick questions? No request for 3 logo variations by morning?" Her mouth curved. "Only if the kiss goes badly." I stopped a few feet away from her. The space between us felt deliberate, chosen. "I read your note," I said. "I assumed. You could have just said no downstairs." "I have said no to that tradition for 3 years. Peter hears women say no the way some people hear jazz. He thinks it's decorative." I laughed, but she didn't. Her gaze dropped to her glass. She had brought the champagne with her, still untouched. "I didn't want my first kiss with you to be a punchline," she said. My entire body went still. "First kiss. With you." The city roared softly below us. Somewhere far away, a siren rose and faded. Snow began to fall in small, cautious flakes. I took one step closer. "Mara." She looked up. There was composure in her face, yes. There always was. But beneath it, I could see the cost of saying this first. "I know," she said. "I'm your boss. I know every reason this is complicated. I know exactly what people would say. I know I should wait until I've made a decision about New York, and I know that if I stay, we would need to change reporting lines before anything happened." I swallowed. "You've thought about this." "Constantly, which has been inconvenient." That nearly broke me. I smiled. "How long?" She narrowed her eyes. "That's a cruel question." "I'm feeling brave. You kissed my cheek in front of the entire company." "I was being tasteful and HR approved." "You were being infuriating." "You liked it." Her silence was answer enough. The snow caught in her hair tiny bright flecks against the dark. I wanted to touch them. I wanted to touch her. I wanted everything too quickly, and that made me careful. "I have thought about it too," I said. Her expression softened. "How long?" she asked. "Since you called my campaign concept emotionally literate." "That was months ago." "I'm very susceptible to praise from terrifying women." She laughed then, really laughed, and the sound moved through me with ridiculous force. Then her smile faded into something tender. "I'm not terrifying." "You absolutely are." "Ethan." "You are," I said, "but not because you're cruel, because you see everything. You see when people are bluffing, you see weak work. You see when someone hasn't slept. It makes a person want to stand straighter." She looked away, and for the first time since I'd known her, Mara Whitfield seemed almost shy. "I see you," she said. It was simple. Devastating. The space between us vanished because I crossed it. Slowly enough for her to stop me. She didn't. I reached up and brushed a snowflake from her hair, my knuckles grazing the side of her temple. Her eyes closed for half a second, and when they opened, there was no office, no party, no CEO with a velvet bag downstairs. Only Mara. Only me. "I want to kiss you," I said. "I came up here hoping you would." "You're still my boss. Tonight, I'm a woman asking you to kiss me. Tomorrow, we handle the rest like adults." I searched her face. "And New York?" Her eyes flickered. "I don't know yet," she said. "But I don't want to make that decision pretending this isn't real." That was enough. More than enough. I leaned in. The first touch of her mouth was soft, almost questioning. Then her hand rose to my chest, fingers closing in my sweater, and the kiss changed. Not reckless, not public. Ours. She tasted faintly of champagne she hadn't drunk, winter air, and the kind of wanting that had been disciplined too long. I cupped her jaw and she made a quiet sound against my mouth that undid every sensible thought I had. When we parted, our foreheads stayed together. Her breath trembled. So did mine. Was that for their story? I asked. Her thumb moved once against my sweater. No, she whispered. That one was mine. I smiled, helplessly. Then the roof door opened behind us. Mara? Peter's voice called. You up here? She closed her eyes. I exhaled. Of course. Mara stepped back, but only far enough to look at me. Not guilty, not ashamed, just intensely, inconveniently alive. We handle it like adults, she said. I glanced toward the door, then back at her. And if adulthood goes badly? Her smile returned, small and wicked. Then I suppose you'll have to argue with me properly. Peter found us 6 feet apart, which was both technically innocent and emotionally absurd. Mara stood by the wall with snow in her hair and my fingerprints probably still warm along her jaw. I stood near the stacked patio chairs, looking like a man who had come to the roof to admire urban HVAC systems. Peter glanced between us, then at the mistletoe note still crushed in my hand, then back at Mara. Well, he said, am I interrupting strategy? Mara's face turned into marble. Yes. I nearly choked. Peter blinked. At the Christmas party? Creative direction doesn't observe federal holidays. His smile faltered, then recovered. Right, of course. I was looking for you because Martin from Voss Capital is asking about New York. He's on the phone. Mara's shoulders tightened by half an inch. I saw it because I was learning her tells now. God help me, I wanted a lifetime of learning them. Tell Martin I'll call him Monday, she said. He was hoping for an informal yes tonight. In a snowstorm on an office roof? Peter gave a strained chuckle. You know how these things are. I do, Mara said. Nor, that's why I'm saying Monday. There was no sharpness in her voice, no raised volume, just a door closing. Peter looked annoyed, but not enough to argue. His eyes slid to me again, curiosity brightening. Ethan, enjoying the party? Deeply, I said. The cookies are responsive to feedback. Mara coughed into her glass. Peter gave me the confused smile of a man encountering humor in the wild. Great, good. Well, don't freeze. When the door shut behind him, I waited 3 seconds. Then Mara laughed. Not loudly, not long. But she laughed with her hand over her mouth like she couldn't help it, and the sight hit me harder than the kiss. Creative direction doesn't observe federal holidays, I said. I panicked. You panicked like a tax attorney. She dropped her hand, still smiling. And you? Urban HVAC appreciation? I contain multitudes. The laughter faded slowly, leaving something quieter. Mara looked toward the door. That's how New York has been. Not a conversation, a campaign. They're pressuring you. They're offering me everything I'm supposed to want. Do you want it? She wrapped both hands around her untouched champagne. I want the title, she admitted. I want the room. I want to prove I can build something from nothing. Her eyes found mine. I don't want to disappear into a version of my life that has no space for anything but work. There it was again. That vulnerable honesty offered like something breakable. I took a step closer. Anything? Anyone, she corrected softly. The words settled between us. I wanted to kiss her again, but more than that, I wanted to be worthy of the sentence she had just given me. I don't want to be the reason you say no, I said. You're not that powerful. Thank God. But you might be the reason I stop pretending saying yes is simple. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I held out my hand. She stared at it. What are you doing? Taking you somewhere warmer. Ethan, the party, will survive without us. Peter can make another person uncomfortable under greenery. Her lips twitched. I shouldn't leave. Probably not. You are terrible for my judgment. I've been told I'm very good for morale. She looked at my hand again. This was the choice. Small enough to look harmless. Then Mara Whitfield put her hand in mine. Her fingers were cold, slender, certain once they were there. We went down the back stairs instead of through the party, which made it feel more illicit than it was. In the hallway outside the elevator, she stopped to grab her coat from her office. I had never been inside after hours without fluorescent lights and client panic. Tonight, the desk lamp cast everything gold. There was a framed print on her shelf I'd never noticed before, a black and white photo of a woman standing beside a lake, laughing into the wind. "My mother," Mara said, catching my look. "She looks like you." She was much less controlled. "Lucky woman," Mara gave me a sidelong glance. Was that an insult? No, admiration. She went still. I realized I had said it too simply, too honestly. Her gaze softened and she reached for a scarf from the back of her chair. "She died when I was 19. After that, control started to feel like survival. The room seemed to quiet around her confession. "I'm sorry," I said. She nodded once, the way people do when sorry is both necessary and insufficient. "She would have hated this office," Mara added after a moment. "All glass walls, no place to hide." "I don't know. She might have liked seeing you terrify men with better watches than sense. That earned me a smile." "She would have loved that," Mara said. I touched the edge of her scarf. "May I?" Her eyes lifted to mine. Then she handed it to me. It was such a small intimacy, wrapping the gray wool around her neck. My fingers brushed the warm skin beneath her ear, and her breath caught. She didn't move away. "I tied it badly." She looked down. "That is a tragic knot. I'm a designer, not a sailor. You've made me asymmetrical." "You're welcome." She shook her head, but she was smiling when she took my hand again. Outside, the snow had turned the sidewalk silver. Most restaurants nearby were closed or packed with holiday parties, but 2 blocks away, a tiny diner glowed blue and red beneath a sign that said, "Louie's 24 Hours." Mara stopped on the curb. "You brought me to a diner." I promised warmer. I did not promise impressive. I haven't eaten diner pancakes since college. Then tonight is about healing. We slid into a booth by the window, still overdressed for cracked vinyl seats and laminated menus. Mara ordered coffee and fries. I ordered hot chocolate and pancakes. She judged me immediately. "Hot chocolate? It has whipped cream. I'm not made of stone. You design national campaigns and drink like an 8-year-old. You hide longing behind black coffee and executive posture." Her eyes narrowed over the menu, then she smiled. For the next half hour, we were not boss and employee. We were two people in a warm booth while snow fell outside, stealing fries from each other and learning facts that felt strangely precious. She hated carolers but loved old Christmas movies. She took boxing classes because sometimes leadership requires hitting something that won't file a complaint. She had once wanted to be an architect. I told her I learned design from my father's old record covers, that I overworked when I was scared someone would realize I didn't belong, that I had almost quit last year before she hired me, because freelancing had worn me down to nerves and caffeine. Mara listened like every word mattered. Not politely, completely. When I finished, she reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. "You belong," she said. I looked at our hands. Her thumb rested near my wrist, right where my pulse was giving me away. "You can't say things like that," I said. "Why not?" "Because I'll believe you. That was the intent." My laugh came out softer than expected. She leaned back, studying me with an expression I didn't know. "How to survive." "What?" I asked. "I'm trying to decide whether kissing you once was reckless enough." "And?" "I'm failing." I stood too quickly, tossed cash on the table, and held out my hand. "Then let's fail somewhere that doesn't smell like syrup." Outside the diner, the snow fell thicker. The street was nearly empty. Mara stepped close beneath the awning, her cheeks pink from warmth and cold, her eyes bright. "This is still complicated," she whispered. "I know. We need boundaries tomorrow." "I know. If I stay, I change your reporting line before we date." My heart lifted at the word date. "And if you go?" I asked. Her smile faltered, but she didn't look away. "Then we decide whether one kiss and fries are worth fighting distance." I cupped her face, giving her time to stop me. She rose on her toes instead. "This kiss was different from the roof. less careful. Snow landed on our shoulders while her hand slid under my coat, gripping the sides of my sweater as if she had been holding herself back all evening and was finally tired of it. I kissed her until the diner window fogged behind us. When we broke apart, she stayed close. "Ethan," she said, breathless. "Yes?" "I'm going to say yes to one thing tonight." My chest tightened. "What thing?" Her fingers curled in my coat. "Walk me home." "Walk me home." 3 words, and somehow they felt more intimate than the kiss. Not take me home, not come upstairs. Mara was too careful for that, and I was too aware of how easily a beautiful night could become a regret if we rushed it. But walk me home meant she wanted more time. With me. So I tucked her hand into the crook of my arm like we were in some old movie she would pretend not to like. And we started down the snowy sidewalk. Her building was 15 minutes away, near the river, one of those old brick places with black fire escapes and warm windows. The city had gone soft under the snow. Tires hissed on wet pavement. Holiday lights blurred in shop windows. Somewhere behind us, a drunk man was singing Jingle Bells with deep, personal conviction. Mara leaned into my side when the wind cut between buildings. "You're using me as a windbreak," I said. "You're tall. Finally, a practical application." "I have many practical applications." That sounded less appropriate than you intended. It sounded exactly as appropriate as I intended. She laughed and tightened her hold on my arm. That small pressure nearly did me in. We walked another block before she said, "I should probably apologize." "For calling me a coward?" "You were being one." "I accept your apology in the spirit in which it was not offered." Her smile faded a little. "For starting this before I had everything sorted." I slowed, pulling us beneath the awning of a closed florist. Buckets of pine branches lined the window, dusted white. "Mara, you didn't start this alone. I handed you a note under mistletoe. I came to the roof. I kissed you. I kissed you back. I asked you to walk me home. And I am walking." I lifted our linked arms slightly, heroically. She looked up at me, snowflakes caught on her lashes. "You make it difficult to be dramatic." "I'm trying to provide balance." Her expression softened, but the worry stayed. "I don't want you hurt by my uncertainty." That went straight through all my jokes. I turned to face her fully. "Then don't treat me like something fragile you have to manage." "I manage everything." "I know." I brushed a snowflake from the shoulder of her coat. "But if this is going to be ours, I get to choose too." Her eyes held mine, searching. There, under a florist's awning on a freezing December night, I saw the thing she rarely let anyone see. Fear. Not of work. Not of Peter. Not of New York. Of wanting something she couldn't control. "I'm choosing this," I said. Not blindly. Not because you're my boss. Not because you kissed me and temporarily destroyed my brain chemistry. Temporarily? I'm being optimistic. A reluctant smile touched her mouth. I stepped closer. "I'm choosing this because when you laugh, I feel like I got away with something. Because you see me when I'm trying hardest not to be seen. Because I have spent months finding excuses to bring you coffee I claimed was extra." Her lips parted. "That was not extra?" "Once. Maybe twice. After that, it was strategic longing." For a second, she just stared at me, then she whispered, "I kept the cups." My heart stopped behaving. "What?" "The ones you wrote on." Her cheeks flushed, and not from the cold. "The bad sketches, the tiny sarcastic comments, I kept them in my bottom drawer like a ridiculous person. I could not have spoken if the future of typography depended on it." Mara Whitfield, who could reduce a room to dust with one measured silence, looked embarrassed. It was unbearable. It was perfect. I cupped her face and kissed her, slow and deep, with pine scent around us and snow falling beyond the awning. Her hand slid up my chest and she kissed me back with a sweetness that made the ache in me turn tender. When we separated, she rested her forehead against my chin. "I'm bad at this," she murmured. "At kissing? Because I have notes." She pinched my side through my coat. I laughed, catching her hand. "Ow, leadership." "At needing someone," she said. The words changed everything. I held her hand between both of mine. You don't have to need me perfectly. Her eyes shone. That is an annoyingly good line. I've been saving it for a terrifying woman in knitwear-adjacent outerwear. I am not terrifying. You have a drawer full of my cups. That makes me sentimental, not terrifying. It makes you both. She smiled, and this time, it stayed. We reached her building 10 minutes later. A wreath hung crookedly on the front door. Mara stopped on the bottom step, suddenly self-conscious. This is me. I gathered. I'm not inviting you up. I know. Her eyes flicked to mine, relieved and disappointed in equal measure. You're being noble again. Painfully. I still don't think it suits your jawline. You're very focused on my jawline. I'm a creative director. I notice structure. I grinned. That's the worst compliment I've ever loved. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then Mara reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her phone. Tomorrow morning, I'm calling HR. My stomach dipped on instinct. To report me for pancake-related misconduct? To ask about changing the reporting structure. She lifted her chin. If I stay. If. The word landed between us, soft but heavy. And New York? I asked. I'll call Martin Monday. She took a breath. I need to decide based on the life I want, not the life that looks best in a press release. I nodded, though I wanted to be selfish. I wanted to say stay. I wanted to say choose me, choose this, choose the drawer of coffee cups and the diner and whatever ridiculous thing had begun under Mistletoe. Instead I said, whatever you decide, don't erase tonight. Her face changed. I couldn't. Then she rose on her toes and kissed me once, lingering but restrained, the kind of kiss that promised rather than consumed. Good night, Ethan, she whispered. Good night, Mara. I watched her go inside. She turned once in the lobby, smiled at me through the glass, then disappeared into the elevator. I walked home in the snow like a man with no central nervous system. By the next morning, I had slept 2 hours and designed absolutely nothing before 9. At 9:17, an email arrived from Mara. Subject: Today, Ethan, for obvious reasons, let's avoid one-on-one closed-door meetings until HR advises us. Also, your scarf knot was objectively poor. I read it 4 times. Then another email came in. Subject: Reporting structure. Ethan, I've contacted HR. For now, Priya will review your work instead of me. This is temporary while I make a longer-term decision. Please don't make me regret trusting you to be professional. Mara. I stared at the screen, smiling like an idiot at the word trusting. Then Denise appeared over my monitor. You look terrible, she said. I feel luminous. Disgusting. Did you kiss? I opened my mouth. She held up a hand. No, don't tell me. Blink once for yes. I blinked once. Denise closed her eyes. Finally, the sexual tension near the printer was affecting operations. Before I could defend the printer, Peter's assistant appeared at the end of the row. Ethan, Peter wants you in conference room B. Denise's expression sharpened. Why? I asked. He said now. Conference room. B had glass walls, which was a relief until I saw who was inside. Peter, Mara, and a man in a navy overcoat I recognized from the board page on our website, Martin Kell, the New York expansion investor. Mara stood when I entered. Not much, just enough that I knew she was not happy I'd been summoned. Martin smiled like he had purchased the room. Ethan Cole, he said. The designer. I glanced at Mara. Her face was composed, but her eyes warned me. Careful. That depends who's asking, I said. Peter laughed too quickly. Martin wanted to meet some of our rising talent. Actually, Martin said, looking between me and Mara, I wanted to understand what might be keeping Mara in Chicago. The room went cold. Mara's jaw tightened. I could have said nothing, the professional thing, the safe thing. Instead, I looked at her. Not at Peter, not at Martin. At Mara. And I let her see the truth before I spoke. She doesn't stay or go because of me, I said. She decides because she knows what she wants. Mara's eyes softened for half a second. Then Martin leaned back amused. Well, he said, let's hope she does. Martin Kell smiled as if he had just found the seam in a wall. Well, he said, let's hope she does. Mara didn't look at him. She looked at me. For one quiet second, the conference room disappeared. No Peter, no investor, no glass walls or office gossip waiting to happen. Just Mara, hearing me say what I should have said the night before but hadn't known how. I wanted her. I was not going to trap her with that wanting. Then she turned to Martin. I do know what I want, she said. Peter straightened. Mara, I'm not taking the New York role. Martin's smile thinned. The words hit me with a force I had to hide. Not because I thought she had chosen me instead of New York. Because she had chosen herself out loud, in a room full of men who expected her to be grateful for pressure disguised as opportunity. Mara folded her hands on the table. I want to build the Chicago creative department into something stronger, not abandon it so you can use my name on a launch announcement. I want the title here, the budget here, and the authority to hire 2 more senior designers by March. Peter blinked. That's not exactly. It's my counteroffer. Martin laughed once. You're negotiating? I'm always negotiating. God, I loved her. It hit me then. Not attraction, not tension, not the high of kissing her under falling snow. Love. Impossible and inconvenient and completely undeniable. Martin studied her for a long moment. You're confident. I'm correct. Peter looked faintly ill. I looked at Mara like a man trying not to applaud in a workplace setting. Finally, Martin leaned back. Send me the proposal Monday. I already did, Mara said. Peter turned to her. You did? At 6:12 this morning. Of course she had. Martin's mouth twitched despite himself. Fine. We'll review it. The meeting ended 3 minutes later, mostly because Mara had already won and everyone needed time to pretend it had been collaborative. I was halfway to my desk when her voice stopped me. Ethan. I turned. She stood in her office doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. A word? Every head in the open office subtly tilted toward us. Denise didn't even pretend not to watch. I followed Mara into her office, where she left the door open exactly 6 inches. Professional, ridiculous, necessary. You handled that well, she said. I nearly said, that's my girl, so I'm proud of my restraint. Her eyes warmed. I am not your girl. Noted. Yet. My heart tripped so hard I nearly forgot language. She glanced toward the open door, then back at me. HR called. Priya will supervise your projects for the next quarter. If everything stays above board, there's no conflict. And after the next quarter? That depends. On? Her confidence slipped. Just enough to show me the woman from the roof. The one who was brave because she was scared and chose to step forward anyway. On whether you still want dinner with me when it's allowed to be called dinner. I smiled slowly. Mara Whitfield, are you asking me on a date scheduled for legal compliance? I'm asking if you can wait. The teasing left me. I stepped closer, stopping just short of where I wanted to be. 6 inches of open door. 3 months of patience, a lifetime of wanting to do this right. I can wait, I said. Her eyes shone. But for the record, I added, I'm going to be insufferable about it. I assumed. I may send calendar invites. I will decline any titled romantic compliance dinner. That was my best one. She laughed softly, and there it was again. That feeling that I had gotten away with something miraculous. Then Mara reached into her bottom drawer. She pulled out a paper coffee cup. Then another. And another. My tiny sketches. My terrible jokes. A cartoon raccoon using design software. A cup where I had written, for when leadership requires caffeine and silent judgment. She set them on the desk between us like evidence. I kept them, she said. I see that. It seemed less alarming when they were in a drawer. No, it's still alarming, but in a deeply flattering way. She smiled, nervous now. I don't know how to do this casually. Good. Good? I don't want casual with you. Her breath caught. The open door might as well have been a canyon. I didn't kiss her, not then. But I touched two fingers lightly to the edge of the cup nearest me, then slid it back toward her. Keep this one too, I said. Until dinner. Her smile was small, bright, and entirely mine. The next 3 months were the slowest and best torture of my life. Priya reviewed my work with brutal cheer. Mara and I behaved impeccably in meetings, which meant no lingering looks longer than 2 seconds, no closed doors, and absolutely no comments about jawlines within earshot of finance. Outside the office, we built something carefully. Texts first, then phone calls, then Saturday walks along the river, where we bought coffee from different shops so no one could accuse us of turning loyalty into romance. She told me about her mother. I told her about my fear that every good thing in my life was temporary. She admitted she still woke at 3 sometimes and reached for her laptop like it could save her. I admitted I had drafted 12 versions of our first official date invitation and deleted all of them. On the first day we were allowed, Mara sent me a calendar invite. Subject, dinner, not compliance. Location, Louis. I laughed so loudly Denise threw a paperclip at me. That night, Mara wore a green dress beneath a black coat, and I forgot every intelligent thing I had ever known. We sat in the same booth from Christmas, ordered fries and pancakes again, and this time, when she reached across the table for my hand, neither of us let go. I love you, I said before dessert. Her eyes widened, then softened. I had a whole plan, she whispered. For saying it? For not saying it first. I ruined your strategy. You often do. And? She squeezed my hand. And I love you too. By the following spring, Mara's new Chicago department had doubled revenue projections. Peter had stopped mentioning charming traditions, and the mistletoe draw was officially replaced by a cookie decorating contest with strict icing guidelines. A year after that night, I moved into Mara's brick building by the river. Not because it was practical, though it was. Not because she needed me, though sometimes she let herself. Because one ordinary Sunday morning while I was making hot chocolate and she was pretending to hate it, she looked at me over the rim of her coffee and said, I don't like it when you leave. So I stopped leaving. That first Christmas in our place, we hosted the office party ourselves. No velvet bag. No public dares. Just too much food. Denise giving a toast that was mostly threats, and Mara standing beside me under a strand of white lights, her hand tucked into mine. Later, after everyone left, I found her in the doorway between the living room and kitchen. Above her head, tied with a red ribbon, hung mistletoe. She looked up at it, then at me. You know the rules, she said. I walked to her slowly, smiling, remembering the silence of that conference room, the note in my palm, the snow on her lashes, the way love had begun as a choice neither of us wanted anyone else to own. This time, there was no audience, no pressure, no reason to be careful except the best one, because what we had was worth keeping. I cupped her face and Mara rose to meet me, laughing against my mouth as the city lights glowed behind us, and the coffee cups she had kept sat on a shelf nearby, ridiculous and precious as proof. What would you have done if your boss stopped under the mistletoe and said, you know the rules? Have you ever experienced something similar? Tell your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships, where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.